let me take things a little bit off a little bit, because I don't want to be unfair and let's say biased even in the way we talk about identity, because identity isn't only about blacks. What about whites? And so when my first topic that I wrote down was identity, and since we started with Paul, I'm going to start with you. Can I ask you, how do you identify? Are you white?
No, I don't identify as white. I just identify as an American.
No, well, I have a more complex identity. When I fill out the census, it doesn't, or the other official documents, I have very little choice except to write white. But I come from a Holocaust family, and so I don't like writing white. But I have no choice. I mean, I'm ethnically Jewish, and I would rather do that.
So in terms of how you think of yourself, do you think of yourself as a white man?
I have no choice because I have the white privilege of the skin.
Do I have a choice?
No.
I have to, so
you don't have a choice.
To a black person that seems black to us.
This?
Sorry.
That seems black to us. And if a black man said, like this man right here, if I don't know what he feels, but I can pick another Owens named Candace Owens or another. If they said to you, I am not black.
Choice. Well, he's black, you're black.
Isn't there something oppressive about that, forcing me to have an identity as a lower class?
You have to have, whether you want to call yourself that, the rest of the world is going to see you as that. Look at Barack Obama. He writes down black, even though he has a white mother. He always writes African American, though he's half white and half black, but he looks black. And the rest of the world is going to look at him as black.
And like Sammy Sosa from the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
He said he's not black.
But he looks black. And when he walks down the street, when he's not taking steroids, and eating a whole lot of home runs, when the rest of the world looks at him, they identify him as black. I've had Afro-Latinos a lot.
So Ricky doesn't identify as white?
Well, but people are going to look at you as white, and
right.
They're going to look at me as white.
So does he have to identify as white?
Well, in the census, you're going to have to.
On the form?
Yeah.
You can't just say other?
You can.
Can't you just say human?
You can, but that's misleading. In actual real life, people are going to look at you as white. They're going to look at me. I'll give you. I had an interesting comment from a student last night when we were talking about that. I mentioned to you, I'm not sure you were there. I was sentenced to go to law school after I was convicted of these misdemeanor offenses. The judge said 3 years in law school or 6 months in jail after I was convicted. And I didn't like law school. I did fine, and I graduated and I passed the bar. That was the choice. And I had a black student who said if I were a black defendant, I wouldn't have the choice of going to law school. That was white privilege. And she was right. She was right. If there was a black defendant in my position, I was articulate, and the judge got pissed off at that. Because I was so verbal with him. He was going to put me in my place. But a black defendant, not as verbal as I, would probably not have had that choice. And so that's a function of white privilege. And I recognized that, and I told her she was right. So the rest of the world, as I walk down Wilshire Boulevard or walk in my neighborhood, they see me as white. I run every morning. I ran this morning. They see me as white, even though I'm uncomfortable with that designation because of a Holocaust Jewish identity. I can't change that. You can't change it, and you can't change it either. That's the public perception. So I live with it, and I think you have to live with it. If you're walking down, unfortunately, and this is horrible, with your hair, if you were to walk in some neighborhoods in LA, somebody would call the cops. That's unfortunate. If you were to walk in Brentwood like that, or if you were to walk in Bel Air, just sauntering down the street, I regret to say that somebody would get on the telephone and call the police and say there's somebody suspicious in the neighborhood. That shouldn't be, because you have every constitutional right to do that, but they would do it anyway. You know it, and I know it.
They made it just. So
what would happen if I walked down Compton with his hair is his identifying feature, but if I walk down with like a Trump hat, what would happen to me?
Nobody would call the police, but you would
No,
get-
they wouldn't call the
but
police.
they would.
But what would happen
They
to
would
me?
say some stuff. They would say,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work the other way. I lived in D.C. a couple of times because I taught at the UC D.C. My wife and I we walked a couple of times in Anacostia, which is all black.
Mhm.
They would ask for your autograph. But go ahead.
And we were friendly. I've lived in, and we looked different. I mean, we were the only white people walking in Anacostia, and I was friendly. I stopped and
Yeah.
saw the children. I like kids, and people are friendly.
Yeah.
Nobody, even though
I'll tell you a story about Compton. I was making a movie called Across the Tracks with Brad Pitt. It was like 1990, the height of the crack cocaine
yeah, it's a
epidemic.
tough place, and
And so we were at Compton High shooting, and they told me, don't leave set, don't leave set.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to leave set, so I got in my car at lunchtime, and I drove over to a local place, serving a fast grill, serving burgers and stuff. The guy in line with me, real nice guy, black guy, and he talked to me about Silver Spoons, and he grew up watching Silver Spoons, and we're sitting there chatting. And then I just wanted to check on my car. I had a 944 white Porsche, probably not the best thing to take around. I go around the corner and I look, and the back hatch is open, and my two doors are open, and there's three guys pulling out my stereo and my CD player. So I started yelling, and you could tell that they were totally drugged out. They weren't even like present. They were just, and I started yelling, and they didn't even look at me. They didn't even respond. They just kind of looked up and ignored me. So the guy I was in line with, he's like, he heard me yelling, and he came over and he said, "What's going on?" I said, "My car's getting ripped off." He went over to his car and he pulled out a shotgun from the trunk. And he walked over to those three guys in my car and he pointed at them and he said, "You get out of that motherfucker's car right now." And they got out. And then he looked at me and he said, you better leave. You don't belong around here." And so that guy saved my ass.
But let's be fair.
And that's
though.
happened before.
It was your car that didn't belong there,
It was-
not you.
It was,
If I drove that car over there, I would
I'm
have
not
the
saying it
same
was
problem.
me. I'm not saying it was me, my skin color.
Yeah, no.
Right, but it was your car.
It
though.
was the car.
And you probably didn't belong there either, but it wasn't because you were